Hello, welcome back to Miasmata. Today we're going to talk about my journey from the left and where did I start and where I am now. So let's get into it. Sorry I didn't put a video yesterday, something came up, but it's fine now. So when I started in the political realm, I started over here on the left-wing authoritarian side. To understand this thing better, people say it's a sweeping generalization, but I generally find it's a good measure of where people lie because a lot of times stereotypes exist for a reason. People tend to have the same beliefs, but sometimes they're altered by the events they have in their life, and so on. So to understand this chart, you have to understand the verticality and the horizontal. The vertical, the authoritarian libertarian means. Authoritarian is someone that does not believe in the choice of people. They would rather have people given their choices for them, which has advantages and disadvantages, but most of the time it's seen as disadvantage because when it comes to people's smaller events in their life, it's much harder. But authoritarian is very good for things like leading a war. Bad things are like leading a society. Okay, down at the bottom is libertarian towards anarchism or absolute free choice. A good example of libertarianism would be the free market, allowing people to choose what they want to buy, allowing people to make the choices of how they want to live their life, how libertarianism can lead to anarchy and to bad things. A libertarian government would be very bad because no one would agree on anything and money would be split and no one could make up their minds on how to pay for things or whether or not to pay for roads. So you need some parts of the government to be authoritarian. For things like schools, roads, we need something to follow to go forward. I guess the biggest misunderstanding these days is what is the difference between the left and the right? Some people will say it's, feelings versus, you know, what do you call it? Feelings versus logic, right? Well, I don't think that's a very fair catch. There are good things and bad things the left and the right both do. On the right, they exude that they are moralistic, but they have moral failings when it comes to individuals' rights to choose. You see right-wing authoritarians such as Nazis, and you see left-wing authoritarians like communists. And then the left claims, that it's moral and allowing people young to vote, that are young, free to choose, but at the same time, it's very immoral because they believe everyone is fair and falls into nihilism where everything is equal, including bad and good. And of course, the religious right on the right side can fall into the same trappings because, they believe that there's one morality and everyone has to follow it. So the left and the right have good and bad. Most people when they're young kind of start out over here where I was in a left-wing authoritarian. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that people that are very idealistic are authoritarian because it's one of those, I have all the ideas, the right ideas, and how to live life perfectly. You should follow me. And that's kind of how I saw the world. But why was I left according to right? Because both my parents were actually very libertarian right. So how did I end up being a left-wing kid? Well, when I was growing up, the biggest show to watch on TV was The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. And he leaned on the left-wing libertarian. So more over here. When I was younger, he did a really good job on shining the light on where the current right-wing authoritarians like George Bush were falling under. They were trying to push laws through the neoconservatives from the 1980s, people like Pat Buchanan. Modern people today like Mike Pence would be an example of an authoritarian right. The problem is that the right wing failed most of America, and people realized that in the 90s, which is why they voted in the Democrats with Obama. And then as we see in the 2000s, 2010s, the left wing party, or the Democrats, failed America because they held up the same problems. They had massive tax increases along with heavy corporatism, uh, partying and allying with the corporate right and the corporate left to screw over the American citizen. Most Americans used to fall into the libertarian camps, especially in the 80s and 90s, and even before then. But as times moved on, people attribute it to different things, helicopter parents, whatever you want to call it. But left-wing authoritarianism is on a very high streak due to upbringing, due to a lot of problems. We don't exactly know why, but there's a lot of things I'll get into later about it. But yeah, when I was young, The Daily Show with Jon Stewart was a very good example of left-wing libertarianism. He talked about the problems on the left and the right, but slowly as he got older, it became less and less accurate and less relevant, as he chose to not talk to Republicans anymore and then just demonize them for all the faults that they made. But he did, in his credit, give Obama a lot of crap too, which is why I liked him. He was a really good watchdog for the left, in my opinion, and he still is in some ways. He talks about how people don't really care about the Russia scandal, that they just want to get back at Trump. But a lot of people don't understand that Trump is a result of a reaction to the left. The thing that really kind of made my departure from the left are two things. Probably the biggest one is after Stephen Colbert left the Colbert Report to get his own show on ABC or CBS or whatever it is, they had a replacement of the nightly show with Larry Wilmore. And I gave it a chance because I've seen his other material, and his other material was okay, but it leaned on race baiting. And I said, sure, whatever. And this is a great example of how the SJW mindset just fails. And this was an early canary in the coal mine situation. It was only on for less than a year. It had very poor ratings. And the reason why is it was black identitarians being interviewed every night, and then there would be one white apologist saying, I'm sorry for slavery, I'm sorry for this, sorry for that. And it wasn't an interesting show to watch. There was no debate. They just took up an issue and said, yep, I agree all around, and they realized how boring it was because everyone agreed. But the thing that made me realize that we were running into problems is that people generally cheered because they said that they liked the program, that it was so progressive, whatever. It's time for a black show, whatever that means. And yeah, but the thing is, every night they would bring on something and they'd say, oh, it's Whitey's fault, blame it on them, and then moved on. And that's what really started to turn me to the right. And then the other thing that kind of opened my eyes up to what actual Christian conservative kind of right-wing stuff is actually the honey badgers on YouTube. I still recommend them, even though they are biased. They're kind of feminism for men, if you will, but with a right-leaning slant. They do cover up and they don't tell the truth on everything, but they also don't lie about everything either. I still would recommend that you watch them, but with a grain of salt. They did a wonderful job kind of promoting, they're a men's rights group, and they talk about supporting men's rights and family court in places like America, Europe, and especially Canada, where they're based out of. They're really worth watching, especially their earlier videos. They talk about how the system's kind of rigged against white males, and they do a really wonderful job of it. So I guess one of my credibility things, again, that turned me away from the left, I used to love reading Huffington Post. Not ironically, I really liked it. It had generally pretty interesting articles it uploaded. And just keep in mind, it was a reposting website. They didn't have very many articles of their own, but it was at the time is run by Arianna Huffington, which was actually an independent, not a Democrat, an independent, and she actually ran for the governor of California, and she came in a very close second, but she lost to Arnold Schwarzenegger, which was a much more popular choice because of his the fact that he's a famous actor. And again, the thing that turned me away from the left is that as much as I loved the left wing, the Huffington Post started to change, and along with websites like Digg, I used to read a lot, it started posting more and more articles about how men are awful and how it's white people's problem, and I'm like, that's so strange. But even before that, there were articles that bothered me. There were articles about how, like, you shouldn't shame women and it's never women's fault, and I'm like, oh, what? And the first thing I think I remember, the very first article that really kind of rubbed me the wrong way, is they talked about how it's okay to drink alcohol in front of your kids as a woman, to drink wine, during the day, and what's the best wine to drink during the day. So it really started, digging out its audience as these rich white liberal women that just stayed home and resented their families and their husbands. And that really kind of tore me asunder. But the thing that still kind of kept me on the left side are things like TYT, but I slowly fell away from that as I saw people like Dave Rubin leave. Some of their more moderate voices left. One person that they still have is very good is Jimmy Dore. He has his own problems, and he's a little bit of a conspiracy guy, but he does a lot of things right. He does bring up stories that will criticize the left or the right, and he does a good job of it. Secular Talk is another really good one. A TYT guy, former TYT guy. He criticized the left and the right, but more than anything, he was a freedom of speech absolutist that slowly is getting pushed away from the left, just like myself. And the left is shrinking because they're becoming more and more authoritarian. And they're doing what all authoritarians do, which is purity tests, which shrink their party down to only the groups they want to cover and care about. And that's kind of where we're at now. That's why the Republicans are growing in such numbers. The Humanist report's pretty good too. I was going to take this political test just to kind of show you where I am nowadays, but I need to get going here. And it's going to be a short video today, sorry. Next time I'll talk about why I joined the right because of the Trump election. I was a fan of Trump before he got elected. I was going to vote for him. But I was also a Bernie bro because they were on the libertarian side of things. And I want to talk about how I switched from the libertarian left to the libertarian right. We'll talk about joining the right next time. But today I probably fall somewhere around here. But yeah, anyways, have a great day. Sorry for the short video. I'll do more next time. Have a great day. Bye.